Archangel Michael says, "This is not a joke, heaven is alert." Something specific in your life needs genuine attention right now, and this message exists to help you finally name it clearly, rather than continuing to treat it as background noise easily dismissed amid the busyness of an ordinary day. Stay with this. Do not close it and return immediately to whatever else was occupying your attention a moment ago. Something has been sitting quietly at the edge of your awareness, present but rarely fully acknowledged, easy to push aside in favor of whatever feels more immediately urgent. This message is asking you to finally bring it fully into focus. Breathe slowly. Let your shoulders soften. Whatever noise has filled your recent days, set it aside for these next several minutes, because what follows deserves genuine presence rather than passing, distracted attention. Reflect honestly on what specifically has been sitting quietly at the edges of your mind recently. Perhaps a relationship that needs honest conversation. Perhaps a decision you have been avoiding, circling around without ever reaching genuine resolution. Perhaps a piece of your own healing that keeps resurfacing despite your best efforts to set it aside. Perhaps simply a persistent, quiet sense that something in your current life is not quite aligned with who you are becoming. Give yourself genuine time with this reflection rather than rushing toward whatever answer first comes to mind. Sometimes several possibilities present themselves simultaneously, and identifying which one carries the most genuine weight right now can help focus your attention more effectively than attempting to address everything at once. Whatever specifically arose as you considered these possibilities, hold it clearly in mind as you continue through this reflection, because this is very likely what this alert has been pointing toward. Genuine urgency rarely announces itself with dramatic, unmistakable clarity. It usually arrives quietly, through repeated nudges easy to dismiss individually, though impossible to dismiss entirely once their pattern is finally recognized honestly. Consider how many times something resembling this current moment of recognition has already surfaced in your awareness, only to fade again once ordinary daily demands reclaimed your attention. This pattern of repeated recognition followed by repeated postponement deserves honest examination rather than continued, automatic dismissal. Try to name, as specifically as you genuinely can, how many times this same particular matter has resurfaced in your thoughts over recent weeks or months. Once. A handful of times. So many times you have genuinely lost count. This honest accounting, however uncomfortable it might feel, helps illustrate concretely why this particular moment deserves the attention this message is encouraging, rather than continuing to treat urgency as simply an abstract concept disconnected from your own lived experience. Fear frequently underlies whatever hesitation has kept this particular matter quietly at the margins of your attention rather than receiving the direct engagement it genuinely deserves. Sometimes it is fear of a specific outcome, worrying that genuine engagement will produce a result you do not want. Sometimes it is fear of the process itself, the discomfort genuine engagement typically requires. Sometimes it is fear of what genuine engagement might require you to subsequently change, recognizing that authentic response to this particular matter may ripple outward into other areas of your life. Notice, too, that fear often intensifies specifically when a matter genuinely matters, rather than remaining flat and disinterested toward things of little consequence. If your own fear regarding this particular matter feels genuinely strong, this intensity itself may confirm exactly how significant this matter actually is, rather than suggesting it should be avoided entirely. Naming this fear clearly, rather than experiencing it only as vague, undifferentiated resistance, tends to make it significantly more workable, allowing genuine examination rather than simply continuing to be controlled by its diffuse presence. Ask yourself honestly how likely the specific feared outcome actually is, based on genuine evidence rather than anxious imagination generating worst-case scenarios without adequate grounding in actual probability or precedent from your own life experience. Ask yourself, too, whether you would genuinely be unable to handle this feared outcome even if it did occur, given everything you have already survived and handled throughout your life up to this point. Most people, examining this question honestly rather than simply accepting their anxious assumption without genuine scrutiny, discover they possess significantly more resilience than their fear typically credits them with. Practical engagement with whatever matter this reflection has helped identify does not require reckless, impulsive action taken without genuine thought or consideration. It requires honest reflection followed by concrete, deliberate action, translating whatever clarity has emerged through this reflection into actual, practical engagement with your real circumstances. If your identified matter involves a relationship, this might mean having one honest conversation, clearly communicating genuine feelings rather than continuing ambiguous interaction. If it involves a decision, this might mean actually making that decision within the next day, rather than continuing to circle around it indefinitely. If it involves healing or self-examination, this might mean sitting with whatever difficult material has been avoided, or scheduling appropriate professional support if that feels relevant to the specific weight this matter carries. Whatever this specific engagement turns out to look like for your own particular situation, consider what would make it feel genuinely achievable rather than intimidating. Sometimes breaking a larger step into something smaller, more immediately manageable, makes the actual difference between genuine follow-through and continued postponement disguised as waiting for more ideal circumstances. This particular moment specifically deserves immediate attention rather than continued treatment as something reasonably postponed towards some indefinite future point when circumstances feel more convenient. Moments of genuine clarity do not typically remain equally accessible and vivid indefinitely. Ordinary daily life has a consistent tendency to reclaim attention, gradually diminishing the vividness and motivational force of even genuinely significant insights. Consider what specific action you can take within the next day, not the next week or month, that would represent genuine movement toward whatever matter this reflection has helped you identify. Think about how many previous moments of similar clarity have already passed by without any corresponding action, gradually fading into ordinary daily distraction. Notice this pattern honestly, not to generate guilt, but simply to recognize why this particular moment deserves a genuinely different response than those earlier moments received. Translating genuine internal clarity into concrete external action often proves easier with appropriate support rather than attempted entirely in isolation. Consider who in your life might serve as a valuable source of encouragement as you begin genuinely engaging with whatever matter this reflection has helped you identify. If professional support feels relevant to your specific matter, whether therapeutic support for healing work, career coaching for professional matters, or other appropriate professional resources, consider this a legitimate and valuable part of genuine engagement, rather than viewing it as somehow separate from or less significant than purely personal effort alone. Think about the specific qualities that would make someone genuinely helpful in this particular supportive role, rather than simply defaulting to whoever comes to mind first. Ideally, this person offers genuine encouragement without either minimizing the genuine difficulty involved or pushing you toward premature, poorly considered action before you feel genuinely ready. Doubt likely has arisen at some point during this reflection, questioning whether this message's central claim genuinely applies to your own specific situation, or whether it simply represents generic spiritual encouragement offered broadly without genuine connection to your actual, particular circumstances. Consider whether your own doubt reflects genuine, careful evaluation, or whether it reflects something else, perhaps the very avoidance pattern this message has been describing throughout, manifesting specifically as skepticism toward the message itself. Notice, too, whether this particular doubt arrived quickly, almost automatically, the moment something genuinely significant began surfacing during this reflection. This kind of rapid, automatic dismissal often signals precisely the opposite of what it claims, suggesting genuine relevance rather than genuine irrelevance, since truly irrelevant content rarely provokes this kind of immediate, defensive response. Genuine urgency does not require certainty about exactly how everything will unfold once you begin engaging directly. It simply requires sufficient clarity about the genuine significance of this particular matter, and sufficient willingness to begin moving forward despite remaining uncertainty about specific details and eventual outcomes. Most genuinely significant undertakings begin this way, with real uncertainty about eventual outcomes accompanying genuine commitment to beginning the process regardless of that uncertainty, trusting that clarity regarding subsequent steps will develop progressively as the process itself continues to unfold. The specific language you might use internally as you approach this particular moment of decision deserves attention as well, since internal language shapes experience and subsequent action significantly more than most people initially recognize. If your internal language currently frames this moment primarily through fear, emphasizing everything that could go wrong, consider whether shifting toward more balanced language, acknowledging genuine risk alongside genuine potential benefit, might actually better reflect the honest reality of your particular situation. What genuinely changes once you have finally begun engaging with this particular matter extends well beyond simply feeling pleasant in any single given moment. Many people report significant relief following genuine engagement, even when that engagement involves real, ongoing challenges and difficulties that do not immediately and completely resolve simply through the act of beginning. This relief stems not from the absence of difficulty, but from the absence of the particular exhaustion that prolonged avoidance and postponement typically produces, mental and emotional energy previously consumed by continued deliberation and avoidance becoming available instead for the different, often more manageable work of actually engaging with whatever genuine challenges this particular matter involves. Many people wait indefinitely for a feeling of complete readiness before beginning something significant, a feeling that, for most genuinely worthwhile undertakings, never actually arrives in the complete, certain form that continued waiting seems to be anticipating. Genuine readiness, more often, develops through the very process of beginning, rather than existing as a prerequisite that must be fully achieved before beginning becomes possible or appropriate. Consider whether you have been waiting for this kind of complete readiness regarding whatever matter this reflection has helped you identify, a readiness that may simply not arrive in the form you have been anticipating until after you have actually begun engaging directly with the matter itself. Measuring your own particular timeline and readiness against other people's apparent confidence and timing often produces unnecessary additional pressure that does not genuinely reflect how most people actually experience significant commitment and change. Most genuine commitments, even those that eventually prove successful and worthwhile, are made amid real uncertainty and real fear, rather than the complete confidence and clarity that comparison to others might lead you to believe should be present before genuine action becomes appropriate or possible. Consider what it would mean to release this comparison, recognizing that your own particular path toward genuine engagement, however hesitant or uncertain it has felt, remains entirely valid regardless of how smoothly or confidently other people might appear to navigate similar decisions in their own particular circumstances. This alert, however direct its language and framing have been throughout this reflection, has not arrived to frighten you or generate anxious urgency disconnected from genuine, gentle care. It has arrived because this particular matter genuinely deserves your attention, offering a genuine opportunity for direct engagement with whatever has been quietly waiting for your response. Release whatever shame or self-criticism might have accumulated regarding your previous postponement of this particular matter. Shame does not accelerate genuine engagement. It simply adds unnecessary additional weight on top of whatever difficulty already exists in facing this matter directly. Approach this moment instead with genuine self-compassion, recognizing that postponement in the face of significant, meaningful matters is an extremely common human pattern, alongside genuine readiness to finally respond differently than you have responded to similar previous opportunities. Genuine, timely action ultimately requires trusting your own capacity to navigate whatever unfolds once that action has actually been taken. Many people, when caught in extended postponement regarding significant matters, are actually struggling less with uncertainty about what they want, and more with uncertainty about their own capability to handle the consequences and responsibilities that genuine action inevitably brings. Reflect honestly on whether this describes your own particular situation, whether the primary obstacle preventing genuine action has been uncertainty about what you actually want, or uncertainty about your own capacity to handle whatever that action genuinely requires once undertaken. Your current physical and emotional well-being genuinely influences your capacity for timely engagement, since chronic exhaustion, unaddressed stress, or significant ongoing emotional difficulty genuinely limits available capacity for the kind of courageous, sustained action this particular matter likely requires. If your own well-being has been significantly neglected recently, consider whether some attention to rest, basic self-care, and emotional support might actually represent an important part of genuinely preparing yourself for the more direct engagement this message has been encouraging throughout its content. Consider what specific systems you might build to support consistent, ongoing action, rather than relying purely on the initial burst of motivation this reflection has hopefully provided, motivation that, like most initial bursts of enthusiasm, will likely fade over time regardless of how genuinely significant this particular matter remains. Consider the specific role that self-trust plays throughout this entire process, since genuine, timely action ultimately requires trusting your own capacity to navigate whatever unfolds once that action has actually been taken. Many people, when caught in extended postponement regarding significant matters, are actually struggling less with uncertainty about what they want, and more with uncertainty about their own capability to handle the consequences and responsibilities that genuine action inevitably brings. Reflect honestly on whether this describes your own particular situation. If self-trust specifically feels like the more significant obstacle, consider what evidence from your own past experience might genuinely support greater confidence in your own capability, drawing on specific instances where you successfully navigated significant challenges despite initial uncertainty about your ability to do so. Reflect on the specific role that your current environment plays in either supporting or undermining your capacity for timely action, since environment shapes behavior considerably more than most people initially recognize. If your current social circle normalizes patterns of extended postponement and hesitation, This environmental influence deserves honest consideration as you continue developing your own particular approach toward genuine, timely engagement. Consider what specific relationships in your life might genuinely benefit from knowing about your renewed commitment to this particular matter, people whose knowledge of your commitment might itself provide additional, valuable accountability supporting your continued follow-through over the coming weeks. This does not require sharing every detail with everyone in your life. It simply invites consideration of whether broader, appropriate transparency about your genuine commitment might serve your continued engagement more effectively. Examine, too, what specific obstacles from your own particular history have most consistently derailed previous attempts at similar significant engagement, whether related to this specific matter or to other significant matters you have faced throughout your life. Perhaps a pattern of losing motivation once initial difficulty arises. Perhaps a pattern of becoming overwhelmed by attempting too much too quickly, rather than sustaining more modest, consistent engagement over an extended period. Whatever specific pattern has most consistently interfered with your previous attempts, name it clearly now, and consider what specific strategy might help you navigate around this particular pattern more effectively this time. Consider what genuine celebration might look like once you have taken that first concrete step. This message has been encouraging throughout its content, recognizing that acknowledging genuine progress, however small, tends to reinforce continued engagement far more effectively than moving immediately toward the next challenge without ever genuinely registering what has already been accomplished. Think about the specific relationship between rest and readiness throughout this particular process. You cannot keep pouring from an empty container indefinitely. If exhaustion has been quietly building underneath everything else this message has already addressed, that exhaustion deserves direct attention too, rather than simply being pushed aside as an afterthought. Consider what rest would actually look like for you specifically, right now, not the idealized version other people describe, but the version that would genuinely restore something in you that has been running on empty for longer than you have probably admitted, even to yourself. Explore, as well, the specific power of small, repeated choices over time. You do not need to solve everything this message has touched on within a single day. Genuine change rarely happens that way, no matter how much a person might wish it could. What actually works, consistently, across countless different situations, is small, repeated choice, one honest moment today, another tomorrow, another the day after that, slowly accumulating into something genuinely different than where you started. Consider what specific danger perfectionism might pose as you move forward from today. If you find yourself believing today's insight must immediately produce flawless, permanent change, release that particular expectation right now. It sets an impossible standard that few people could genuinely meet. Progress will be messy. You will have good days and harder days. All of that is normal, and none of it erases the genuine value of what you found here today. Before this message reaches its true close, take one final moment for yourself, genuinely absorbing what has emerged throughout this reflection rather than rushing immediately toward whatever comes next in your day. Name, specifically, what matter this alert has actually been pointing toward in your own particular life. Name, specifically, the concrete action you intend to take within the next day, moving this matter from the category of things perpetually postponed into the category of things actively, genuinely being addressed. This does not need to feel dramatic or overwhelming in order to matter significantly. It simply needs to feel genuine, real engagement rather than another moment of temporary reflection quickly forgotten once this message ends and your attention naturally returns to whatever else occupies your ordinary day. Trust that this particular message reached you today for a genuine reason, connecting specifically to something already present and waiting within your own awareness, rather than arriving randomly or without relevance to your actual life circumstances. Something in you recognized enough significance to continue reading this far, past the point where you might have closed this message earlier had it genuinely carried no connection to anything significant currently present in your own life. Consider what it might mean to continue checking in with yourself over the coming days regarding whatever action you have begun today, recognizing that genuine follow-through often requires sustained engagement beyond this single initial moment of reflection and commitment. Perhaps setting aside a few minutes each day, or each week, to honestly assess whether you are continuing to move forward with whatever process this reflection has helped you begin. How you will handle the inevitable moments of doubt or difficulty that are likely to arise as you continue this process beyond today deserves genuine reflection as well, moments when the clarity you feel right now begins to feel more distant or uncertain amid the ordinary demands and complications of daily life. These moments of doubt do not indicate that your original clarity was somehow mistaken. They simply reflect the natural fluctuation that accompanies any genuine process of significant engagement and change. When these moments of doubt eventually arise, consider returning to this specific reflection, rereading whatever sections felt most significant during this initial encounter, allowing the content to reinforce your original commitment even as its initial emotional intensity has naturally softened somewhat with the passage of time. Consider, too, reaching out to whatever support person you have identified, sharing the specific doubt currently being experienced rather than allowing it to operate silently, potentially derailing your continued engagement. What specific obstacles are most likely to arise as you continue translating today's recognition into sustained action over the coming weeks deserves consideration as well. Practical complications that make continued follow-through more difficult than it seemed during this initial moment of clarity. Old patterns of avoidance attempting to reassert themselves, particularly once the immediate emotional impact of this message begins to fade. Whatever specific obstacle feels most likely for your own particular situation, briefly considering in advance how you might respond to it can help you navigate it more effectively when it actually arises. Most significant matters worth genuinely addressing rarely resolve completely within a single conversation or action. Progress more often looks like continued, honest engagement over time, gradual movement toward genuine resolution, even if that resolution takes considerably longer to fully develop than you might initially hope given the intensity of clarity present in this particular moment. Consider what specific record you might keep as you continue this process beyond today, some form of documentation that allows you to track genuine progress over time rather than relying purely on memory to preserve the clarity and commitment you feel right now. This does not need to be elaborate. A simple note, written somewhere you will actually encounter again, briefly describing what this matter has been about and the action you intend to take, can serve as valuable evidence later. Consider, finally, what it would mean to trust that this particular alert, whatever specific form it has taken in reaching you today, arrives out of genuine care rather than any arbitrary or coercive intention. This message is not trying to frighten you into hasty, poorly considered action. It is simply offering honest encouragement to interrupt a pattern of postponement that has likely extended considerably longer than genuine necessity would actually require, inviting you toward the genuine freedom and fulfillment that comes from finally engaging with what has been waiting patiently for your attention. There is one more layer worth adding before this message truly comes to its close, something practical that ties everything shared today into sustained, meaningful engagement over the coming weeks ahead, ensuring this genuine alert actually produces the lasting response it deserves rather than becoming simply one more instance of temporary motivation quickly forgotten. Consider what specific daily practice might help you maintain connection to whatever clarity has emerged through this particular reflection, something brief enough to sustain consistently rather than elaborate enough to likely be abandoned once initial motivation naturally diminishes over time. Perhaps a few minutes each morning, briefly recommitting to whatever action you have identified as your genuine response to this alert. Reflect on what specific evidence of genuine progress you might reasonably look for over the coming weeks, evidence that would help confirm authentic movement is actually occurring, even when that movement unfolds gradually rather than through one single, dramatic moment of complete resolution. Perhaps a growing sense of lightness or relief connected to whatever matter you have begun addressing. Perhaps concrete developments in whatever specific action you identified as your initial step forward. Consider, too, what specific role reflection and reassessment might play as this process continues unfolding beyond today. Genuine engagement with significant matters rarely proceeds in a perfectly smooth, predictable line from initial recognition through complete resolution. It typically involves periods of clear progress alongside periods where the path forward becomes temporarily less obvious, requiring renewed reflection and, sometimes, genuine reconsideration of the specific approach being taken. Give yourself genuine permission for this kind of ongoing reassessment, distinguishing it clearly from the pattern of postponement and avoidance this message has been addressing throughout its content. Reassessment, engaged in honestly while maintaining consistent underlying commitment, represents healthy, adaptive engagement with a genuinely complex matter. Explore what your particular relationship with this matter might look like 1 year from today, looking forward with genuine intention rather than simply hoping passively that circumstances will somehow resolve themselves without your continued, active participation. Picture, as specifically as you genuinely can, having engaged consistently and honestly with whatever this alert has helped you identify, noticing what that engagement has likely produced by that point. Consider what specific people in your life, beyond simply the one supportive individual already discussed earlier in this reflection, might benefit from knowing about your genuine commitment to this particular matter. This does not require sharing every detail with everyone in your life. It simply invites consideration of whether broader, appropriate transparency about your genuine commitment might serve your continued engagement more effectively than continuing to hold this process entirely privately. Reflect, too, on what specific fears or hesitations from your own particular history have most consistently prevented similar significant engagement in the past. Whatever specific pattern has most consistently interfered with your previous attempts, name it clearly now, and consider what specific strategy might help you navigate around this particular pattern more effectively this time, informed by honest reflection on your own particular history rather than generic advice that fails to account for your own specific tendencies and challenges. Consider, as well, what specific role your relationship with uncertainty plays throughout this particular process, since some people navigate uncertainty relatively comfortably while others find it consistently more challenging, often connected to earlier life experiences that shape their overall relationship with unpredictability and change. If uncertainty feels particularly difficult for you personally, this awareness itself can help you approach this particular matter with appropriate self-compassion, recognizing that your particular difficulty with uncertainty reflects genuine, understandable history rather than any kind of personal failing. Explore, 2. What specific role spiritual or philosophical practice might play in supporting your continued engagement with this matter, whether prayer, meditation, or simply consistent reflection connected to whatever framework genuinely resonates with your own particular worldview and understanding. Many people find that periods of significant challenge naturally deepen their spiritual or philosophical engagement, precisely because these periods tend to surface exactly the kind of larger questions about meaning, purpose, and direction that such practice has traditionally helped people navigate throughout human history. This message reached you today for a reason. Trust that. Carry it with you. And when you are ready, not before, not because anyone told you to, but when you are genuinely ready, take your next step. Deep down, you already know what that step is. Thank you for receiving this message today, for taking this alert seriously rather than allowing it to pass by unanswered like similar previous moments may have passed by before. Be gentle with yourself as you continue engaging with whatever has been waiting for your attention, one honest, deliberate step at a time.